Hello, everyone, and welcome in to our Rotoworld NBA Draft Preview Show. We're going 1 to 30. We're going from Zion to infinity and beyond, perhaps. We got a good show here. We're going through the picks 1 through 30, and I got some helps to do that as well. Our Rotoworld analyst sitting right to the left of me, Tommy Beer, Steve Alexander. You guys have your notes and you're ready, correct?
We're ready to roll.
Let's do it.
How did you prepare for this? Normally, teams have 1 pick. You have like 10.
Just copy and cheat off other people's mock drafts.
Cheating. Yeah, cheating. I've got some papers here, too. You can look at them, too. You guys are not alone. We also have via satellite from Pro Basketball Talk. That is Kurt Heelan. Kurt, can you hear us?
I can. It's good to be here with you guys. This is going to be fun.
This is going to be good. We're going to get a lot of information out here about who are the top college basketball prospects, international prospects out there, and what the team needs are, and the fantasy impact, too, as well. You guys are going to give us a little insight into which players maybe we should be thinking about drafting when the fantasy season comes around next year. I do want to say, though, that the lottery teams, they do have something that is very important. That is a lottery pick. And if you're Atlanta, you have 2 of them in the top 10, so the Hawks can make some serious moves. You keep both of them, or you trade them and try to move up or acquire other talent. Here are all the teams. The Boston Celtics, 3 picks in this draft, including 1 right at the tail end of that lottery as well. We do want to remind you, while the season's coming to an end, the NBA offseason sure to have just as many twists and turns in recent years. You can stay tuned to the Rotoworld player news feed for all the latest news, rumors, analysis throughout the entire offseason. That's over at rotoworld.com/NBA. So, guys, deep breath. Should we jump right into it?
Let's do it.
With the first pick in the NBA Draft Preview, brought to you by Rotoworld. Tommy Beer, you got that with the New Orleans Pelicans. I think I know where you're going.
Oh, I don't know. Let me check. Let me do some last-minute research. This is really tough. Give me Zion Williamson all day, every day. Really a no-brainer for New Orleans. Obviously, you know about his prodigious talent. And not only that, I mean, the guy's a surefire superstar in terms of marketing. So even if the GMs had any second thoughts, you see his stats on the screen right now, the points, rebounds, he can do it all. Incredibly high field goal percentage. But the ownership, you know, New Orleans needs a star. Looks like they're losing Anthony Davis. They are getting one in Zion that really has an opportunity to really take his game to the next level. Really, the only question with this pick, and since it's a Rotoworld show, is where does he go in the fantasy draft?
Sure.
You're probably going to have to reach for him. If you want him, you're going to have to reach for him. 20, 25, top 15. You might have to spend a second-round pick if you're determined to get Zion Williamson on your fantasy team.
Zion Williamson, the consensus #1 pick in the NBA draft. I'm interested to hear, though, as we go through some of the other players, if he really is the player that is most likely to have the highest fantasy impact. That may or may not be the case, depending on where they go as well. Let's go to the #2 pick. And, Steve, you've got the #2 pick, the Memphis Grizzlies, on the clock.
I did not hear Tommy mention dunks when it came to Zion Williamson, and that's what Zion Williamson does. And if this would not have been the year of Zion Williamson, I think it would have been the year of Ja Morant. And Ja Morant is my pick. The Memphis Grizzlies, it's clear that Mike Conley is on his way out. This may be his last year. He may be gone before this year happens. Ja Morant is a point guard. He's going to take over the leadership of that team along with Jaren Jackson Jr., and maybe Conley will stick around for a year and mentor Ja Morant. But either way, like I said, if Zion wasn't all-world this year, we would be hearing a lot more about Ja Morant.
Ja Morant, only player to average 20 points and 10 assists in a single season since the assist stat became a stat since 1983. He can do it all. Fantasy impact for him, Steve?
It depends on what happens with Conley. If Conley's there, he's going to be a mentor to Morant. Morant's going to come off the bench, maybe not play as much. I still think he's going to have value, but I wouldn't want to take him before maybe 7th or 8th round in a fantasy draft. If Conley goes and Morant's starting, I think you're looking at 4th or 5th round.
Workload goes up. All right, for the first time in our draft, Pro Basketball Talk's Kurt Heelan on the clock, 3rd with the New York Knicks. Kurt.
Well, it's tough to fill James Dolan's shoes, but I'll see if I can come up with something just as crazy. No, I mean, the Knicks are trying to, shop this pick around. They don't necessarily want to take the #3 pick, but they're also finding out the #3 pick and Kevin Knox is not equal value for Anthony Davis. So they're struggling to find anybody who will actually take this. Assuming they end up taking it, look, it's a pretty obvious pick. They're going to take R.J. Barrett out of Duke. I mean, a year ago, guys, R.J. Barrett was the guy on top of everybody's mock draft. He was going to be the #1 guy. Now, look, he put up really good numbers. You think about it last year at Duke. Zion Williams is on that team. Cam Reddish is on that team. Who had the ball in their hands? Who did Coach K run the offense through? RJ Barrett. This is a really good player, a guy who can make some shots on the wing. Where he actually grades out ultimately we'll see, but I think here it's an obvious pick at number 3 and a guy who could fit with the Knicks if they end up keeping it.
Scored a team high 860 points at Duke. So you got Zion, you got Ja Morant, and you got RJ Barrett. If I'm going to put you on the spot, the player that's going to have the best fantasy season next year, Tommy, we'll start with you.
I will say Zion is projected, assuming they move Anthony Davis, he's going to be one of the focal franchises. But I think a sleeper would be RJ Barrett, especially the Kevin Durant situation. If they sign him and redshirt him for a year and kind of not necessarily tank, but play their young guys, I think RJ Barrett has a potential to be a really solid fantasy contributor.
I agree exactly. Zion Williamson is my pick, but if Barrett is with the Knicks, and the Knicks are so they need talent, and he has talent.
Talent void. There's a void there.
A talent void. That's a good call.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he could be really good in New York.
Kurt, what do you think?
Yeah, look, Zion Williamson's going to get a lot of opportunities, and they've still got a really good point guard feeding him the rock. So, like, one way or another, he's going to put up really great points. But I think the idea that RJ Barrett could end up with the ball in his hands a lot, much like Kevin Knox did last year, but a better version of that's actually a great idea. He could put up a lot of points.
All right, the number 4 pick in the draft, the LA Lakers. Tommy, you're on the clock for that.
Yeah, I think we have to preface this pick by addressing the rumors that are kind of running all around the league that this pick is up for grabs. Ideally, the Lakers would prefer to move the pick in a combination, in some type of package, and bring back Anthony Davis. Rich Paul would like that. LeBron James would like that. The Los Angeles Lakers would like that. Whether the Pelicans like that, that's kind of what we have to wait and see. It seems like they're kind of dragging their feet. Ideally, they would like the Lakers to flip this pick, bring back a player with more talent that is ready to contribute right away for the Pelicans franchise. Let's assume the Lakers keep their pick. I think they're going to go with the best player available. In my opinion, that's Jarrett Culver, a relatively established guard out of Texas Tech. He can help on both ends of the floor, ready to contribute right away should the Lakers, keep their roster relatively intact. He can knock down some shots for LeBron. They didn't have much shooting, perimeter shooting last year. So I think he's a good fit on the Lakers as currently.
So the Big 12 Player of the Year, Jarrett Culver, going number 4 to the Lakers. And real quick, how likely is it that you think that they keep that pick? What percent chance do they keep that?
I think it's certainly more likely they trade it. I think it's maybe a 25% chance they keep it, somewhere along those lines.
First 4 picks in the book, and now we're gonna go even harder on you guys. We're actually putting a shot clock. I mean, we got a 40-second Rotoworld shot clock for the remaining picks in our draft, and we do have the number 5 pick, the Cleveland Cavaliers, on the clock for the first time. Steve, you got the shot clock. What are you thinking?
Well, they've already got a point guard. I would like to see Darius Garland go top 4 out of Vanderbilt, but Colin Sexton should be the point guard of the future for the Cavaliers. So since he's not a perfect fit, I'm going to go with DeAndre Hunter out of Virginia. Had a huge final game for them to lead them to a championship, 27 points, 9 boards. He's a 3-and-D guy. I think he's a really good player. Might be a little high to take him right here, but after you took my guy, I'm going to go with DeAndre Hunter.
Well, we've already got the first accusation of taking your guy in our Rotoworld.
Officially a draft now.
Draft here, 27 points, 9 rebounds for him in the national championship game for DeAndre Hunter. He goes number 5. Number 6, the Phoenix Suns on the clock. Kurt, what do you got?
Well, you guys left me Darius Garland. I've got 2 point guards. I've got a point guard starved team. I think they're seriously going to consider Kobe White, but I'm going to go with Darius Garland. He's got the upside as a shot creator. I mean, the problem is we didn't see a lot of him, right? Because of the injury, we just didn't see a lot of him at Vanderbilt. But he is a guy that has really impressed teams in workouts and so far. And look, this is the draft. They're going to take the guy based on potential. Garland has a lot of potential. You put him next to Devin Booker and the guys they got on the wings, and suddenly you might start to have something there in Phoenix.
Darius Garland, Vanderbilt, only played 5 games, as you mentioned, before that knee injury, but is impressed in workouts so far. So he's going to Phoenix in our Rotoworld draft. 7th pick, Chicago Bulls. Tommy, who you got?
One of those situations where it kind of melds addresses a position of need and also best player available for Chicago. I think they're going to go with Kobe White out of North Carolina. Impressive size, 6'5", can shoot the rock, shot a solid percentage from 3 for North Carolina. The Bulls are not happy with Chris Dunn since they traded for him. He's kind of been underwhelming. They have him for another year under contract, but I think they view Kobe White as their kind of point guard of the future, and they have a great young core, Wendell Carter Jr., Larry Markkinen, and I think he can kind of be the focal point, kind of the captain of that ship for years going forward.
Interesting. You got the guy who broke Jordan's freshman scoring record at UNC going to the Chicago Bulls with the number 7 pick in Kobe White. 8th pick, Atlanta Hawks. Steve, that's you.
We're going to go with Cam Reddish out of Duke. Kind of played in the shadow of Zion and R.J. Barrett last year, but Cam Reddish is a good player, and he was supposed to be a much higher pick than this when he went to Duke. So I think there's a lot of upside there. I think he's a sleeper, and I think the Hawks will take Cam Reddish.
And you don't know how much he had to play through. A core injury that he had surgery for, and so perhaps that was part of the lackluster. Also playing behind Zion and RJ at Duke. That'll do that as well. With the 9th pick, Washington on the clock. Kurt, you're on the clock as well.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Jackson Hayes out of Texas here, the kind of prototypical modern big man, right? He's really athletic. He can protect the rim. He can get up and down and run and get some rebounds when Bradley Beal occasionally misses a shot or John Wall less than occasionally misses a shot. There's just a lot to like with how he could fit with this team, and they think they can develop him. I mean, he's going to be a project. This is a project big. But I think he's somebody they can develop into a really quality big man in a couple of years. And, well, let's be honest, the Wizards are a couple of years away.
Here's the funny thing about Jackson Hayes. His first start in basketball came in high school. His senior year in high school, grew 10 inches in high school, and now a late bloomer. And so, as you mentioned there, Kurt, maybe some work to do, but a lot of potential. With the 10th pick, we got Atlanta on the clock again. Tommy, that's back to you.
I'm going to go with Sekou Doumbouya. Bit of a risk, a bit of a flyer. He's the youngest player in the eligible, that's draft eligible this season. A bit of an unproven commodity. Played limited minutes over in France last season. But when you talk about upside, this guy brings it to the table in spades. And also important to keep in mind the fact that the Hawks have 3 picks. They have 2 picks in the top 10. They also have the Nets' 17th overall pick. So they have the opportunity to take a flyer on a guy like this that presents a ton of upside. So I think it makes sense for Atlanta.
They can be a little more patient out there than maybe some of the other teams. So first 10 picks are in the books. With the 11th pick, Steve, you got the Minnesota T-Wolves.
Jeff Teague is on his way out. He's in the final year of his contract. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, kind of a combo guard, can play point guard or shooting guard out of Virginia Tech. I think he fits in well there, and he's a good three-point shooter and a good offensive guard. I think he's a perfect fit with Teague on his way out of town.
Gives him a little bit of both there. Point guard, played a little more point guard late in the season by necessity, shot 37% from three-point land. Nickeil Alexander-Walker going 11th to Minnesota. Kurt, you're back on the clock with Charlotte at 12.
I need somebody who can help Kemba Walker right now because we're paying him a boatload of money. I'm actually going to go with Brandon Clark out of Gonzaga. This is a guy who, look, this is a team that could use more defense. That's what he specializes in. He's going to big, long forward who can defend the 3, can defend the 4. Plus, he scored 17 points a game really efficiently at Gonzaga. I think he can help score a little bit because he's not going to be the primary ball handler, just work off the ball. I think he's somebody who can step in right now and help Charlotte win a few more games and maybe make the postseason.
And here's the interesting thing about a draft that all the teams will think about. Where do you go with the potential and the rawness, or maybe more of a finished product? What you see with Brandon Clark, one of the oldest projected first-rounders this year, perhaps more of a safe pick. We got him going 12th to Charlotte. 13th pick, the Miami Heat on the clock. Tommy, that's you.
We will have back-to-back Gonzaga Bulldogs in the draft, as I am going to select Rui Hachimura, power forward out of Gonzaga. I think the Heat are in a position now where they can kind of look at best player available. They have a pretty, while they don't have a superstar, they have some good depth, in the backcourt, in the front court. I think Hachimura is a player that they can kind of envision, pop into Eric Spoelstra's system and have success. Really came on as a junior last year, averaged 20 points per game, shot over 59% from the floor, nearly 42% from three-point range. So he can score on all 3 levels. I like what he brings to the table for Miami.
And you look at that, the description, the scouting report for him, two-way player. I think he has ability on both ends of the court. That's what you're looking for in the middle of the first round. Speaking of middle of the first round, we got Boston for the first time. First to 3, 14th pick. Steve, that's you.
Boston has a really strong lineup top to bottom. I think they take the best player available. I like Tyler Hero. He is a picturesque shooter, great form, good offensive player. I think he's a good fit, space the floor for them and give them added offense.
You're not going to get a better name, too, than Tyler. I mean, how do you – that's a first-round name, so he has to go in the first round. 14 points per game as a freshman at Kentucky for Tyler Hero. So the lottery is in the books. We've been flying here. I don't think you guys have too many shot clock violations, so well done so far. Maybe a couple. We'll have to review the tape. 15th pick now. The Detroit Pistons get their first-round pick, and for that, we go back to Kurt.
Yeah, this is what I'm starting to struggle with because we're kind of at the point of the draft, right, where guys have a lot of potential. There's a lot of guys who are like, wow, that guy could be good or he could just bomb. And then you're kind of trying to read them. I mean, Nasir Little's fallen way down. He's in there. Kevin Porter Jr. But you know who I'm going to go with is Romeo Langford out of Indiana. He's a guy who played through injuries, had a lot on his shoulders in Indiana. Didn't necessarily live up to that, but I was talking to his agent. Like, he played not only through the injuries we know about, but a couple they didn't discuss publicly. There's some concern about that, but if he can get right, I think this is a guy who can score at the next level. And look, what team couldn't use a guy who could just go out and score? I think there's a lot of potential there, so I'll go with Romeo.
Yeah, before that uneven season and the injuries, he was a projected top 10 pick, and so if you're picking there 15 for Detroit, that you're seeing some value. So 15, we got Romeo Langford going to the Pistons. 16th pick, Tommy, back to you, the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, Kurt alluded to it. We're at this point of the draft now where you're going to take maybe gamble a little bit on guys on their upside, and that's where I'm going to go with Nasir Little out of North Carolina. Didn't play much at North Carolina. Really came in with high expectations. North Carolina was really hoping that he kind of, be one of their star players and lead them on his minutes were up and down. Wasn't a consistent player in the rotation. But when you talk about athleticism and all the stuff this guy brings to the table, if you base it just on combine measurements, athleticism, explosiveness, 3-point shot while it wasn't consistent, the mechanics look good. He's just one of those guys that could be a star in the NBA in a couple of years. And when you're around 16 in the middle of the draft, rather, you don't really have those guys with that high upside. So
yeah, Nasir was the number 3 recruit coming out of high school. If you can get something close to that at 16 in the NBA draft, you're feeling pretty good for the Orlando Magic. Moving on to the 17th pick now. Sure to see some draft day trades coming up during the draft. We've already seen a little bit of movement here. Brooklyn had this pick. Now it is Atlanta's pick after they acquired Alan Crabb. So Atlanta with the 17th pick. How do you see this one?
Well, I think they're going to gamble. And by gambling, I say they're going to take Kevin Porter Jr. out of USC. He was suspended last year. He was disengaged at times when he wasn't suspended. So there are some definite question marks there. But he's a gifted athlete. He's a gifted scorer. There's so much upside potential there. I think the Hawks are willing to take a gamble on that.
The 6'6" guard out of USC, Kevin Porter Jr., averages 9 points a game at USC, but you're basing it more on the potential and what he could be than maybe what he showed in his college career. Let's go to 18th now, the Indiana Pacers on the clock. Kurt, back to you.
How about P.J. Washington out of Kentucky? Probably the best player out of Kentucky in this class, I think, as a pro. And a guy with the potential to be a stretch 4 in a team that knows how to develop that. I think Indiana can do that. They don't have to rush him along. They can take their time. But he is long. He has a ridiculously good vertical. There's a lot to like about his potential if you can take the time to bring that shot along and turn him in. Like I said, if they can turn him into a stretch 4 in a couple of years, they're going to have a lot of value there. So I think that's where they go with this.
Yeah, good size for him. We got him at 6'8", 230. Went back to school, climbing up the draft boards there, refined his game a little bit more, showed some things. There's a case where you go back to school and you get a little more evidence, and they liked what they saw with P.J. Washington going 18th to Indiana. 19th, Spurs. The smartest team in the NBA, especially if you talk to them, but I think a lot of times it plays out that way. Who do you got, Tommy?
Yes, they are smart, and we know they are not afraid to pluck talent from the European pool of players. I'm going to go with Goga Bitadze, the versatile center out of Georgia, the country, not the state. Became just the 3rd center to win the EuroLeague's Rising Star Trophy after averaging 12.1 points, 6.4 rebounds, and 2.3 blocks per game. Can give you some production on the low block, can step out and knock down that mid-range jumper. So there's a lot to like there. The Spurs obviously feel confident with their development staff. They can bring that young kid in, get him used to, assimilate him into the American culture, and then more importantly, assimilate him to the great Popovich brand of basketball, R.C. Buford. So I think that pick makes sense on multiple levels.
Word on the street is he still needs to refine his defense interior, but if you're 6'11" and as big as he is, you feel like that could come with the right teaching, and I'm sure the Spurs could give him that. We're back to Boston with the 20th pick, their second pick of the draft. Steve, what are you thinking?
Well, first of all, props to Tommy for taking the all hard name team. Yeah, we were joking.
Clear of all the hard names.
Tommy has taken all the hits on the European difficult names. But as far as the Boston Celtics go, I'm going to take an easy name to say, a controversial pick, I'm sure. Manute Bol's kid, Bol, 7'2", center with a foot injury that required surgery last year. He's a freak. He shot over 50% from downtown last year. I think he blocked almost 3 shots a game in a couple games. How many games did he play? 9, I think. He didn't play very much before he got hurt, but when he did play, he was very good. 5 games?
Yeah. 9 games. No, you were right. Yeah.
Oh, it was 9. So there's some injury risk there, especially we've seen foot injuries for big men throughout history. So I'm a little worried about that, but if he can play, he's going to be fun to watch.
High variance for Bol, who shot 52% from three range for a guy who stands 7'2" when he did play. The 21st pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll go back out to Kurt for that one.
Yeah, Oklahoma City, I don't know if you guys noticed this last season. They could use some shooting a little bit. So how about Cameron Johnson here out of North Carolina? I like him, one of the 6'9" guy, but one of the best shooters in this draft, a guy who can do some catch and shoot. You can actually see him getting minutes on a second unit right away with either Paul George or Russell Westbrook, both of whom are slashers who get to the rim, who need guys who can space the floor and kick it out too. So I kind of like the fit here. I think that's like, why does the good shooters always fall down the board and then suddenly how did that guy fall down the board? Why are we picking him so late? I think this is a guy who can actually have an impact as a rookie.
46% from 3 range for North Carolina last year. Cameron Johnson going 21st to the Oklahoma City Thunder in our Rotoworld NBA Draft Preview show. Boston again for the 3rd time in the first round, 22nd overall. Tommy, how are you going to go with this one?
Celtics, short and long-term futures, both up in the air right now. What happens with Kyrie Irving? He's not the only free agent. You got Terry Rozier, Al Horford, Marcus Morris. So I think they want to kind of address a player that has a little bit of versatility. I'm going to go with Kelvin Johnson out of Kentucky. So a stock dip a little bit late in the season over Kentucky's last 3 games, averages 10 points, shot just 36% from the floor during the Kentucky's final 3 tournament games. So not the way you want to close out your season, but if you look at just the highlights and you look at the talent this kid brings to the table, there's a lot to like there. So I think this late in the lottery, I think Danny Ainge has got a player here. Able
to hit the outside shot as a scouting report on Keldon Johnson. Maybe not great at creating that shot, and so that's something he's going to have to work on at the next level. Moving on to the 23rd pick, the Utah Jazz for the first time, Steve.
I'm going to go with Ty Jerome, UNC shooting guard. Really high IQ, versatile player. Looks like Donovan Mitchell might end up playing point guard for that team. Ricky Rubio's on his way out. I think Ty Jerome, solid, safe pick for the Jazz there.
Ty Jerome going to the Jazz with the 24th pick. We got Philadelphia on the clock, and we put Kurt on the clock again.
Well, let's pick somebody for Philadelphia that would fit in with Philadelphia and the personality of that team and the personality of that city. Let's go with Grant Williamson out of Tennessee. A kind of physical, grinding, nasty player who can come off the bench and just bang around, work hard. Plus, you've actually got to respect him from 3. He has developed that shot. I kind of like how he fits off the bench with that team. And again, I think that's the kind of player the fans in that city will just come to love, because who doesn't love the guy who just comes in and grinds and is physical and does all the dirty work?
Grant Williams, a 2-time SEC Player of the Year, could be a small ball type of center. One of those players where you see that he just gets the job done. He's a guy that just gets the job done. He's a winner. He's been that through his college career. Going to Philadelphia, 25th overall in the first round. Portland, Tommy, you got that.
I think the Blazers obviously exceeded expectations last season, getting all the way to the Western Conference Finals. They're bringing the majority of the team back. Really, the only rotation player that's a free agent is Al-Farouq Aminu. So I think that enables Portland to go the best available player route. And I'm going to go with Chuma Okeke out of Auburn. Obviously, he's dealing with an ACL injury, could miss the majority of the season, if not the entire season. But in terms of upside, when you talk about a guy that has the ability to contribute starting maybe late next season, the season thereafter. This is a significant talent. If he wasn't injured, he probably would be a lottery pick. So smart general managers usually can capitalize. There's a little bit of risk there, obviously. But again, if he was fully healthy, he'd be much higher than this. So I think that the Trailblazers take advantage of him falling due to the injury and scoop him up at 25.
Yeah, 6'8". He had 12 points per game for Auburn last year, shooting 39% from outside. So 6'8", but had that outside shot. The Cleveland Cavaliers have another pick. It's 26th overall in the NBA draft. And Steve, how are you going to take that one?
Well, Kevin Love's not going to be around forever. Power forward Nick Claxton out of Georgia. He runs the floor really well. He's a good finisher. I think Colin Sexton would like to play with him and vice versa. I'm going to go with Nick Claxton there.
Nick Claxton out of Georgia, the 7-footer, averaged 13 points, 9 rebounds at Georgia. We got the Brooklyn Nets on the clock again with their second first-round pick, 27th overall. Kurt, how are you going to take that one?
You know, the Nets have been clear from the start. What they actually want to get in this draft is some help, some backup bigs, some depth at the front line. So let's go with the guy who kind of won the combine, Luka Samanic out of Croatia, a European guy, was 6'11", pretty athletic, was so good the first day of the NBA Combine. He didn't even play in the second day of the Combine. He impressed people that much. He knows he's going to be a first-rounder. I think this kind of fits with where the Nets want to go.
You look at the scouting report for Samanic. They say the only red flag is motivation. Maybe his motivation isn't quite there. Maybe we just don't know a whole lot about him either. So we're going to learn if he is a first-round draft pick for sure. 28th pick, the Golden State Warriors, like they need more talent, but we'll give them a pick.
The Warriors, I think I'm going to go here. Obviously, we know they can score. Their defense slipped a little bit this season, so I'm going to take the best defensive player on the board, arguably the best all-around defender in the entire draft, Matisse Thybulle. 4-year starter, so we know he can come in and contribute right away. He's not going to need a year or two apprenticeship underneath the Warriors' great players. I think he has the ability to come in and make an immediate impact, which is something obviously the Warriors want to continue their dynasty, would like and would need. So I think Thybulle is a player. And again, they have plenty of shooting to spread the floor. They won't have a problem taking a player with some offensive inabilities if he's such a great defender. And that's 2 blocks, 2 steals a game. This guy's the real deal.
You read about the long arms for Thybulle and defensive superstars, what I have highlighted on my sheet here. Going to the Golden State Warriors, who don't need any more talent. Speaking of don't need more picks than you already. San Antonio Spurs with 2 picks in the first round. They're at 29 overall as well. Steve, how are you going to take that one?
Well, when Tommy started talking about defense right there, I really thought he was taking my guy, Luguentz Dort, out of Arizona State. Hard-nosed defender, plays with a ton of energy. He gets it done on both ends of the floor. He's really a defender, though. He's not going to have a great offensive game. He can guard multiple positions. He seems like a pop kind of guy, right? So, Luguentz Dort.
All right. Luguentz Dort is going 29th to the Spurs, averaged 16 points, 4 rebounds for Arizona State this past year. And to finish it out, Kurt, we're going to give you the honor with the Milwaukee Bucks at 30th.
Mr. Irrelevant pick. All right. Actually, Steve just took my guy, so now I'm going to have to improvise a little bit. I'll go with KZ Okpala out of Stanford. I mean, look, the Bucks like long guys. He's 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan. He showed some versatility near the end of the season and some ability to score. He seems like somebody who could kind of come off, somebody they could develop to fit into their system where they're getting up and down the floor and they like those versatile, long, again, defensive-minded kind of guys.
So that is the Bucks pick. The first round is done. You guys are off the clock. You don't have the pressure of 40 seconds anymore. Yeah, get some water, relax here. Kurt, relax as well. So let's take a look through all the picks. Let's see what we just did. What have we accomplished here? Well, we did the first 10 picks we'll take a look at first. And Zion did go 1. Zion Williamson, Morant 2, RJ Barrett. Many people expecting that to be the case. But guys, when you look at the first 10 picks, Tommy, we'll start with you. Anything jump out of you here? You think we nailed it? Or you think there's some movement possible here?
I think we got pretty much the consensus. I mean, late in the lottery, obviously I think the top 3 picks are consensus. And I think Barrett's going to surprise people with how good he is, as we talked about earlier in the draft. And then I think 4 through 8, it's one of those situations where the GM at 5 might value Hunter just as much as the GM at 9 values Jackson Hayes. There's just a lot of, if you talk to people around the league, there's not a lot of certainty in that middle to late lottery. So I think we could certainly see some movement. But I think with those 10 players moving up and down a little bit, I don't think you're going to see anyone sky into the top.
Let's take a peek through 11 through 20. those picks is done here live on our Rotoworld NBA Draft Preview Show. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was at 11th pick. Goga Batadze going 19th at the end. Bol went 20th. Steve, with your bold pick, if any player here you think could creep into the top 10, who do you think it would be?
Well, my guy Kevin Porter Jr., I think if he has his mental attitude, if everything's good with his head, I think he could really do something. And I kind of like Nasir Little. I feel like he's a sleeper in this draft. If he can get his offense working, he could be a really good player. And I think Romeo, injured at Indiana last year, when he was Mr. Basketball of Indiana, he was supposed to be the next coming of Michael Jordan. So he's still got some time to develop.
So those are picks 1 through 20, and then 21 through the end of the first round are on your screen right now. And Kurt, we'll get your opinion on this chunk of the NBA draft that we did. Anything jump out at you here?
Yeah, this is the part of the draft where you're really rolling the dice, right? You're hoping to find the guy who kind of pops up. And I like Ty Jerome a lot, actually. I think that's a guy who could surprise a lot of people and actually have an impact.
So that is 1 through 30, the first round. Obviously, there's going to be some changes. I don't think we nailed it 100%, maybe 95, but there are going to be some changes in the picks there. But there are also going to be a lot of movement as far as trades. How much do you think that's going to play a part in what we see at the draft coming up on Thursday?
Well, I think right off the bat, that 4 pick, that could kind of be the first domino that falls. Does somebody jump into it? Do the Lakers decide to keep it? If they decide to keep it, what players are on their roster? Can they add another top-tier player? So I think that's kind of the first domino that'll fall. And after that, we could see some movement, there. But I don't think there are too many people that NBA decision makers view as difference makers. So I don't think you're going to see a team jump up from 17 and, mortgage the farm to jump up to 5. So
these players, we talked at the top of the show, Steve, about the fantasy impact players, the Zions, the Barretts. As a rule, though, are those players normally overdrafted? Do we get a little too excited about some of the elite players coming out?
I feel like I'm one of those people that tells people not to draft rookies unless you're certain they're going to be really good. And a lot of times I get burnt. Donovan Mitchell, for example, great rookie season. I slept on him, missed out. But a lot of times I feel like rookies, especially when they have big names in college, people get excited about them, take them too early, and then, it just takes them time to develop. 1 year, a friend of mine drafted Glenn Robinson as a rookie because he was a big Purdue fan over Michael Jordan. That's not smart.
That didn't work out very well? No. But then it gives you the opportunity for the post-hype sleeper, right? The guy that we all were excited about that failed his first year and then comes back and has a great sophomore season. So Pro Basketball Talks, Kurt Heelan, let's get your final thought here. And you're following this draft. You're talking to GMs. You're talking to agents right now. Do you feel like you have a pretty good grasp on how teams are going to react and the talent they think is up there? Or is this a different draft than you've seen in previous years?
No, I don't have a good feel for it at all because I don't think anybody has a good feel. First off, Tommy touched on this. After 3, everybody's trying to move out because everybody just sees risk. If you're a GM picking 4, 5, 6, the fan base thinks you're getting a real 4, 5, 6. When these guys would be, if this had been last year's draft, they'd been much lower, lower in the lottery. So you don't like that risk. So everybody's trying to move out. I'll tell you the team I thought we did well with. If this is how it shakes out, I really like the Atlanta Hawks. I mean, you get Cam Reddish, you get Porter Jr., those are the kind of potential guys for a young team. They've already got John Collins in the middle. Obviously, they've got Trae Young. You get a couple more young, good players that they can develop in that program with Lloyd Pierce. I like where that team. I like where that team's headed. Period.
Yeah, the beginnings of developing a really, really, really strong core. If you're the Atlanta Hawks, you got a lot of resources to do that. As we just showed you, there's more to the NBA draft than just Zion and Ja and RJ. The Pro Basketball Talk for the winners and losers. That's coming out Thursday, and how your team fared. You can go to NBCSports.com/NBA or download the NBC Sports Scores app for more. All the grades will be out there from Pro Basketball Talks. Kurt Heelan, Tommy Beer, Steve Alexander with the Fantasy Impact over there at Rotoworld. Thank you guys for the time. That was a lot of fun. You got a lot of information out there. And I don't think we're going to be 100%. I think we'll be in the 90th percentile. So guys out there, I hope you enjoyed the show and enjoyed the draft as well. That'll do it for our NBA draft preview brought to you by Rotoworld.